Sentilhes and Chris Hughes. Once again, just allow me to introduce quickly the moderator of this session, Mr. Reda Islam, who is the CEO of Moderator Mustaqbal, which is specialized in technical consultancies, and he has been working for 8 years in the International Organization of Entrepreneurship, which is concerned with sharing experiences among entrepreneurs at the international level. Engineer Reda Islam has worked as a director of the organization in the organization in Saudi Arabia. Now he's also assuming the post of the director of the organization in the Middle East and Pakistan. Please welcome Mr. Reda Islam and the participants in this session.
The theme of this year's forum. During this session, we look at entrepreneurship. What are the challenges entrepreneurs face? What enablers are in place?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Peace and prayers be upon Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Good morning to all of you. I wanted to start untraditionally. The person you see in the presentation is Abdullah Siraj. Abdullah Siraj is a Saudi youth who has energy, ambitions, and enthusiasm. Yesterday, he was asking me about one issue. I told him that I'm going to get the economic forum. So he asked me to produce a small film about tomorrow. I didn't think that he would be able to do it in 12 hours. This work, which you have seen, 1 minute and some seconds, was produced by Abdullah Siraj within less than 12 hours. I just wanted to thank him on your behalf and to greet him because he's a youth and he has done a good job. This is a beginning of our talk about tomorrow. Today, we are all in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia representing the situation of tomorrow. I think there is something in the presentation.
So we raise the following questions. What are the challenges that entrepreneurs face?
There's a problem with the presentation.
In building and stimulating the culture of entrepreneurship and innovation among our youth. What is the role of the GCC government in
repairing the problem, we wanted to participate in Jeddah Economic Forum with a message. Tomorrow, as an institution which was established yesterday, 6 years ago, had as a goal to give incentives to the youth of Saudi Arabia. The issue of entrepreneurship in Saudi Arabia is a problem that concerns us all. We wanted to examine the challenges of the entrepreneurship in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. We found 10 examples of the challenges facing entrepreneurship in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I think there are more than these 10 challenges, but we found that in a country like Saudi Arabia, there are risks of finance, but they are decreasing, and the government procedures are now becoming easier. There are also great efforts at the level of the basic talents of the entrepreneurs. Also, Saudi entrepreneurs are now entering global competitions. All this is available. We look into the issue differently. Historically speaking, entrepreneurship was not a challenge in the history of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia at the level of individuals. Today, we have taken simple examples for the models of the emperors of empires of businesses. We can see that some Saudi entrepreneurs started to work at times where there were no government measures, there was no smart financing, there were no incentives. There was no education, there was no training. This gives us at least a summary or a basic point to tell us that the problem does not lie in the ecosystem that is organizational or measure related or the capital. However, our outlook is or our understanding is that the problem lies with the individuals. I have taken this slide from Endeavor, and Endeavor focuses on high impact entrepreneurship. They have conducted a study in the year 2013 to see where the challenges facing the entrepreneurs in emerging economies or emerging markets, including Saudi Arabia. They came up with 5-6 things, which did not include the government measures or the market. They focused on the entrepreneur himself or herself. These are basic points. They are not related to the government organization or the finances, with the exception with smart financing. We have summarized them in points, speaking specifically about spreading the culture of entrepreneurship in Saudi Arabia. We found that it revolves about individuals or around individuals. The second point, that today the cost of the failure of the entrepreneur is high. Unfortunately, the society does not mercy the entrepreneur if he loses or if he enters into business and without being able to complete it. Also, the absence of the inspiring models was part of the study, and the weak administrative experience and the relations with those who inspire us. Also, the absence of confidence. People have no confidence in a product produced by Saudi youth. Also, the weak smart finance. Many of the problems which we have mentioned at the beginning finished, and why? Because the people or the individuals who assumed the leadership of ministries had the sense of entrepreneurship. Therefore, we had seen changes at the level of the ministries. What we see is social and commercial and governmental entrepreneurship. Therefore, we have seen a transformation at the level of certain ministries, proving that the person is the one who makes the change and not the ecosystem which is available. Therefore, in Al-Ghad Tomorrow institution, we focus from the beginning on the fact that incentives to the youth lies with giving them the chance. This is the main entrance to the culture of entrepreneurship in Saudi Arabia. This is the vision of Al-Ghad institution or corporation, that we should create an appropriate climate that would give the incentive to the Saudi youth to participate in the sustainable development. And we do not mean specifically entrepreneurship, but we should work for preparing the youth for the stage of entrepreneurship. Therefore, the values on which we work are those contained in the video. We have spent, since 6 years ago, we have been working for preparing such a stage for the youth to come up and speak on it, to tell us about their ideas. We have given them the chance to speak with government leaders. we have came out with some good results. We came out with inspiring initiatives. We have also the TEDx Riyadh TEDx, which was attended by about 1,700 youth, both male and female. Their main objective was to learn from the 18 or 17 speakers that would come up on the stage. We have an initiative that is called the Envoy of Tomorrow, which takes 52 youth, male and female, from all regions of the kingdom and try to transfer the successful experiences. We have communicated with the emirates or the governor, the provinces or of the regions, the different regions. And we had influence on certain areas where councils were established for the youth with the main objective being inculcating confidence in them and giving them room. And with the help of Allah, this country will see good things. The youth are those who are going to make the future. We have joint projects, we have studies, we have incentives, inspiration. All this started with the idea of a lady that it is incumbent on her at the level of her national duty to give incentives to the youth of the people. We have summarized them in points, speaking specifically about spreading the culture of entrepreneurship in Saudi Arabia. We found that it revolves about individuals or around individuals. The second point, that today the cost of the failure of the entrepreneur is high. Unfortunately, the society does not mercy the entrepreneur if he loses or if he enters into business and without being able to complete it. Also, the absence of the inspiring models was part of the study, and the weak administrative experience and the relations with those who inspire us. Also, the absence of confidence. People have no confidence in a product produced by Saudi youth. Also, the weak smart finance. Many of the problems which we have mentioned at the beginning finished, and why? Because the people or the individuals who assumed the leadership of ministries had the sense of entrepreneurship. Therefore, we had seen changes at the level of the ministries. What we see is social and commercial and governmental entrepreneurship. Therefore, we have seen a transformation at the level of certain ministries, proving that the person is the one who makes the change and not the ecosystem which is available. Therefore, in Al-Ghad Tomorrow institution, we focus from the beginning on the fact that incentives to the youth lies with giving them the chance. This is the main entrance to the culture of entrepreneurship in Saudi Arabia. This is the vision of Al-Ghad institution or corporation, that we should create an appropriate climate that would give the incentive to the Saudi youth to participate in the sustainable development. And we do not mean specifically entrepreneurship, but we should work for preparing the youth for the stage of entrepreneurship. Therefore, the values on which we work are those contained in the video. We have spent, since 6 years ago, we have been working for preparing such a stage for the youth to come up and speak on it, to tell us about their ideas. We have given them the chance to speak with government leaders. We have came out with some good results. We came out with inspiring initiatives. We have also the TEDx Riyadh TEDx, which was attended by about 1,700 youth, both male and female. Their main objective was to learn from the 18 or 17 speakers that would come up on the stage. We have an initiative that is called the Envoy of Tomorrow, which takes 52 youth, male and female, from all regions of the kingdom and try to transfer the successful experiences. We have communicated with the Emirates or the governor, the provinces or the regions, the different regions. And we had influence on certain areas where councils were established for the youth, with the main objective being inculcating confidence in them and giving them room. And with the help of Allah, this country will see good things. The youth are those who are going to make the future. We have joint projects, we have studies, we have incentives, inspiration. All this started with the idea of a lady that it is incumbent on her at the level of her national duty to give incentives to the youth of the people. I would like to thank the Princess Nov bin Turki, who is with us today. She is the one who launched this project, and she's going to continue with us. And I am proud that the chairman of the board of directors of an institution like this is a lady. This is another addition. I thank her. She's still enthusiastic about offering more. So we have the efforts and the determination at the level of Al-Ghad Youth organization. So I'll leave you with the last question, which was raised by Ernest and Young, and the report Entrepreneurs Speak Out, which was submitted to the leaders of the G20 summit. This question was directed to Saudi entrepreneurs. Do you think the culture in your society supports the entrepreneurship? You can think about this. Do we have a high percentage? I will put the answer, but I have many reserves on the figure. 86% of the entrepreneurs who were interviewed by EY said that the society in Saudi Arabia and the culture supports entrepreneurship. I will leave it for you to judge that percentage. I think there's another question during the session which relates to the studies which were conducted after this study, which was implemented in 2011. I think that our work should start at the level of the individuals. I think also we at the Al-Ghad organization, youth organization, we are committed and we welcome any partnership that supports the youth of this country. I thank the Jeddah Economic Forum for providing us with the chance to participate, and I look forward to an enriching discussion in this session. Thank you. Thank you, Brother AbdulMohsen. Brother Farid. The name of Allah Rahman Rahim. Your Excellencies, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. At the outset, I'd like to thank the JCC and Jeddah Economic Forum Chairman for inviting us to participate in this successful forum. Within the next few minutes, I will review with you the experience of Mohammed bin Rashid Foundation for the Development of SMEs in Dubai in order to promote the entrepreneurship thinking in Dubai Emirate. In fact, our foundation offers a service to all categories of the society with all their different ages, categories. We cooperate with the Education Ministry to promote entrepreneurship thinking in schools. Entrepreneurship It's not something that you can think when you are old, unless you have practiced it and, during your different age stages or phases. We have many initiatives. We have the small merchant initiative for school students. It is held at one of the malls on an annual basis. We distribute kiosks on students who have commercial ideas to practice commerce at the market, just like other senior missions. The idea is not with the type of products, but we just want to train them how to buy and sell and how to negotiate and how to learn trade skills. This is aimed at the school students. We have another initiative with Kidzania, which is one of the leading institutions. Of course, you know it. It is based in Mexico. It has a branch in Dubai, Dubai Mall. We have signed an agreement of cooperation with them. It has a section for the promotion of entrepreneurship for the children. We take those children to Kidzania where they play, but they are taught how to practice the work as a job. So we have introduced all the experiences that I have, especially in relations with the entrepreneurship and the exercise of commerce. This is for the children. As for the adults, we have Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Award for businesses, which encourages distinctive projects on an annual basis. It also encourages government institutions which support such SMEs. I will share with you during my presentation some of the services or some of our programs which are geared toward supporting sustainability of SMEs. When we started our foundation about 12 years ago, we have faced a problem. That is, many of the citizens had ideas which are commercial. However, they had the apprehension to launch this project because they were worried about failure. This is a fact and the reality which should be dealt with. Many of us today want to launch their problems. They have their projects, they have the idea, but they need someone to encourage them and push them to get into the first experience. Fearing failure is one of the major reasons that stops people from launching their projects. So we launched a program called Intilaq, through which license was given to all household ideas while giving them the legal framework to start inside their houses. So the idea for those who had the idea, instead of opening a shop, spending on decor and labor, we told them, no, you can stay at home, you practice your business at home. So if you find the idea successful and many people came to you, you can expand within 3 years. So we provide them with a chance for 3 years to try their projects. And alhamdulillah, many succeeded and their projects were developed into effective programs after 3 years. And some, even within less than 3 years, were confident and learned what is required and improved their products, and they excelled. Foundation, we have programs designed to develop the business sector in Dubai. These include consultancies and training services. We have individual consultancies sessions with each one who thinks about launching businesses in Dubai. We teach them how to deal with the license measures and procedures and how to prepare a feasibility study. The principles, let's call it commerce principles. If we feel that they are in need, we have training courses for them in order to encourage them to be trained in areas where they need training, such as marketing, human resources, administration. Of course, we have different fields. As the time is not enough, I cannot go into their details. We have services aimed at minimizing the cost of the establishment of the enterprise in Dubai. As you are aware, we have high rents compared with other places. We have also high cost for the decor, and the labor cost is also a little bit high. So we said to them, we will exempt you from the license fees for the first 3 years. So the citizen, the young citizen who wishes to launch these businesses today in Dubai, we exempt them from the fees which any merchant should pay to exercise his commerce. This is, of course, distinct assistance, because even if you save him 5,000 dirham, this is a considerable amount. We also concluded cooperation agreements with government and semi-government institutions which own the real estate, such as Wasal Real Estate, which is the real estate foundation which manages all real estates owned by the government of Dubai. There is also another circle which owns many real estate, so we have concluded a contract with them to give preferential rates with these youth referred by us, and also to give them preference in leasing or renting. For example, if we have 2 people, one of them transferred or referred by the institution, they give preferential treatment to the person referred by the institution with about 20 to 30% discount of the rent amount. This is a great support for them at the beginning of their business process. We have also supporting the incubators of commercial works or businesses. We expanded it as there was high demand on it. We have now 82 offices furnished and ready for work at any time. Anytime the citizen comes to us, the following day he can bring his laptop and start his commercial work from Dubai. With regard to the finance services, they are important. As you are aware, in all the studies we conduct, the youth always face the problem of finance. However, many of them believe that if this problem is solved, everything is solved. No, this is the beginning. The beginning always comes through finance, and when the project is launched, we have the problem of marketing because they lack the confidence of the people. So at the beginning, we provided them with service to finance the small enterprises. We have 2 types of loans. One loan is an establishment loan, which starts from 10,000 dirhams to 250,000 dirhams without profits or benefits. It's free of interest. This is for the fast projects which need fast capital. You can take this money and enter into a deal as a fast or express finance. This amount of money could be repaid within 7 years, the following 7 years. This is the repayment period. We also have the major loan that starts with from 250,000 to 3 million dirham, which is directed to those who have ideas or projects in Dubai and they need to develop them into larger projects by expanding them or opening new branches or new lines of products all those products are aimed at, we aim at finalizing the procedures of these projects within 1 month, because we believe that the commerce is a market opportunity. So if he asks for a loan and he delays for 6 months, he may lose this chance. So speed to deal with these requests is very important. In the past, as you know, that the big used to eat the small, today the fast eat the slow. So we have to be very fast in implementing our ideas. Thank you, Brother Farid. Just one detail relating to the purchases, but I will not take long. We have other services aimed at sustaining the projects. Having established the project and minimizing the establishment costs, we want to ensure the sustainability of the project, because no matter how much money you give him, if he doesn't enjoy the market confidence, he cannot continue, because the recurrent expenses eat up his capital. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid issued 2 decrees, one at the local level and the second at the federal level. Those 2 decrees instruct the government and semi-government circles in which the government of Dubai possesses 50% or more of the shares to give 5% of the budget of their annual purchases to the members of the SMEs registered with us at the foundation. This is, of course, a great support to the youth. He issued another decree to the federal ministries imposing on them, granting 10% of their annual purchases to the SMEs registered under for support institutions. We try to engage them in conferences and exhibitions and international fora. This builds confidence in them and gives them the chance to be sustainable in the market. Thank you. We wish success for all of you. Thank you, Brother Farid.
Thank you. Now, we had a video and we unfortunately don't have it. However, I will be speaking again at 1 p.m. over lunch. So if anyone would like to join to listen to that, please do. I'm sure that I don't have to say this, but I'm going to reiterate some statistics around unemployment that are fairly shocking. There are 1.8 billion youth in the world right now, a quarter of the world's population. 87% of them live in developing countries, and 2/3 of them are underutilized. So they're not in full-time education or employment. 1.2 billion youth that don't know how they're going to put food on the table in the foreseeable future due to being underemployed. Now, this is a huge problem. Now, it's not just reserved for the developing countries. In the EU from 2008 to 2012, youth unemployment increased by 24.9%. And even in Australia, one of the most robust economies in the world, 1 in 4 youth right now, so those aged 15 to 24, are not in full-time education or employment. This is a big problem. And is a problem that I propose that entrepreneurial thinking and ecosystems, that entrepreneurship is the solution to. And I must commend Sheikh Salah and the Jeddah Chamber for putting on such a fantastic event, and all of the initiatives that are happening around entrepreneurship in the kingdom and in this region. It's fantastic and very exciting, and I commend everyone in this room for coming and being a part of the solution. And I really hope that everyone can come out of these sessions empowered to make an impact in your ecosystem to help the youth and to create a better world for everybody. Now, is this working? If we can shift to the next slide, I'm trying to go, but it's not working. I'm here representing the G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliance. We're hosting a summit in Australia on the 18th of July, and I would encourage every young entrepreneur in the room to please come and apply to join us in Sydney. Again, I can commend the Prince Abdulaziz bin Abdullah for founding the initiative called the Centennial Fund, a fantastic organisation here. They're the G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliance member in the Kingdom, and they'll be bringing a delegation from the GCC region to Sydney on the 18th of July. So please do apply to come and be a part of the discussion on a global scale around what we can do to help young entrepreneurs. If we can go to the next slide. Yep. Down. Gotcha. So, I've been running companies for about 13 years, and I've discovered a concept that I believe defines entrepreneurship. It's very, very simple. It starts with identifying a problem. The great entrepreneurs identify what some might call a gap in the market or a problem. They create a sustainable commercial solution to that problem. They then figure out who values that problem, what is their target market, because if no one values the solution, then you're not going to have a business. They then take action, and the cycle continues. Now, this is a process of entrepreneurship. What is critical to entrepreneurship is the mindset. Success begins and ends in your mind. So when you run a company, you inherently learn these mindsets, but these mindsets can be educated. Peter Drucker says that entrepreneurs are not born, they're made. You can teach this. So entrepreneurs are passionate, inspired, and energetic. They're empowered and confident enough to take opportunities. They have an ownership mentality. They're fast decision makers and risk takers. They're leaders. When you run a company, you inherently must become a leader. They're disciplined and hardworking, and they constantly are learning, they're adaptive, and they're dynamic. My proposal is that this concept has the potential to fundamentally change the world in two ways. The first is if you can foster this mindset, you shift the way people think. You can shift the way that your youth and your children think. And when you think with these mindsets, it creates an elevated approach to life. They become more engaged citizens. They become better employees. They're going to look for problems in society and try and solve them commercially and sustainably. They're not going to be looking for handouts anymore. They're going to be out there creating change in the world. The second way that this can change the world is that if you create ecosystems that foster entrepreneurship, then you can actually lift societies out of poverty and you can solve the youth employment crisis. Because when you create ecosystems, you create more jobs. You create people that will create jobs for themselves and hopefully go on to create high-growth enterprises that create jobs for hundreds of other people. And there's a lot of data that backs this concept up. So the next concept I'm going to present is that of an entrepreneurship ecosystem. In this analogy, the ecosystem is like your economy. The trees are the entrepreneurs or the businesses. An ecosystem or a business, a tree starts with an idea, which is like a seed. A seed must be planted into a bed of innovation and technology. This idea then needs to be watered with access to capital. So these are our 6 pillars of entrepreneurship ecosystems that we talk about at the G20 Young Entrepreneurs Alliance. So you have a great idea, you make it innovative, or you make it technology-enabled, you water it with access to capital. The sun is like education and coordinated support. It doesn't matter how fantastic an idea is and how much money you throw at it. If the entrepreneur doesn't know what they're doing, then it won't work. The next, like the animals in the ecosystem, are the government. The government can either be incredibly facilitative and create an environment that fosters a better ecosystem, or they can constrain it. The 5th pillar is entrepreneurship culture, much like the ethereal concept of an atmosphere. All of the elements of all the other pillars create a culture. The culture is what the parents teach their children, what teachers tell their children about entrepreneurship, what's said in the media. There's many elements which I'm going to run through very quickly. The final pillar is trade and globalization. So what are some of the elements in an in the innovation and technology sector? R&D, ease of commercialization, digital infrastructure, major universities as catalysts. A lot of the next Facebook might be sitting in an engineer's, in a computer engineer or a software engineer's university project right now, waiting to be commercialized. So what are the universities doing to promote entrepreneurship? The next pillar is access to capital. I affectionately, and in Australia we use the Triple F fund, we call affectionately friends, fools and family, who are going to fund a business before it's commercial, when it's just an idea. Angel investors, access to debt, private equity, venture capital, and what we in Australia call superannuation funds. Then in education and coordinated support. Entrepreneur-specific training, private and NGO programs, mentors and advisors, professional services firms, incubators, which the Kingdom is spawning a lot of. All of these things contribute to the education and coordinated support pillar. And then the human capital element. If an entrepreneur creates a business that is going to become a high-growth enterprise, can they hire the staff, the quality people that they need in order to grow that business? In taxation and regulation, it's really about making it easy. And I've got one recommendation in each of these pillars, which I'm going to go to first, next. Tax incentives, business-friendly legislation, digital infrastructure, affordable digital infrastructure, access to transport. They're all things that can be addressed with policy. Then culture. Chris touched on this. Tolerance of risk and failure. Making it all right for our children to go out there and do something wrong, and then encourage them to pick themselves up and do something again. Because if people aren't willing to make a mistake and they're not going to be supported out of the back of a mistake, then they're going to be constrained in their willingness to go and try something entrepreneurial, to find something new and try and commercialize it. So the preference for self-employment, success stories in media are really important. Research and culture, a positive image, and celebration of innovation. I went to the Olympiad, the National Science Olympiad in Riyadh before coming here, and wow, your youth are incredibly impressive. They're coming up with some amazing ideas. One young boy came up with an idea to turn paper recycling and other second-hand products into bricks that cost half as much as a normal brick and are also insulation. They're heat resistant. This guy was about 12 years old. That's a business of the future, and that's a Saudi innovation. So commercializing those ideas, amazing. The talent's here. You guys have everything you need, but it's mindset. It's all about getting out there, taking ownership of what you're going to do, creating your own future. Peter Drucker says that the best way to predict the future is to create it. The final one's trade and globalization. So access to markets, free trade agreements, subsidies and tariffs. If other countries are constraining trade, or if Saudi is constraining trade, that's a barrier for entrepreneurship. And then what access to big customers are there? If someone creates a new enterprise, can they sell that to the government? Can they sell that to big business? Is it easy to sell it to small business? Some statistics very quickly. The World Economic Forum, Stanford and Endeavour did a study of 380,000 companies in 10 countries. And they proved that the top 5% of companies defined by the rate of growth of jobs contributed to 72% of the country's aggregate total revenue and 67% of the total jobs. And they're characterized by being young and presenting high rates of growth. Young firms. It's all about firms younger than 5 years old and startups that are creating all the jobs around the world. There's reams and pages and books of data that support this information. And you guys have heard a lot about it today. The OECD, education. In order to strengthen entrepreneurial abilities, teaching methods must be redefined from primary schools to universities. Activities that go beyond traditional teaching, such as dedicated entrepreneurship centers, internships, teacher and advisory education, and increasing an entrepreneurial mindset. This isn't just our opinion, this is the opinion of all the leading organizations around the world. You need to focus on entrepreneurship and education. Entrepreneurs are made, not born. And It can be taught like any other discipline. Entrepreneurship is a skill. Of course, there's going to be some people that are naturally more apt and more talented. However, it's a skill that can be taught, like any other skill. So, here's some of the organizations that are promoting this idea. Now, some specific recommendations that we can do in the kingdom here, and that I hope that will impact everyone in this room. I've heard a lot of conversation around what government should do. It's not just government's role, it's everybody's role. Everyone in this room can have an impact. So what can we all do? And what should we all do? Based on my experience and the time that I've spent in the kingdom, I've chosen these out of all of the recommendations that the Alliance makes to the world leaders. So in the innovation and technology pillar, there's this fantastic concept called free access IP, where universities, instead of making it very difficult and making it complicated for companies to come and commercialize their technology, they give it away for free. In return for branding. And it's incredibly impactful. So for anyone that's representing a university here, you can go back and say, hey, all of this research and development that's happening here, let's give it away to our young entrepreneurs, let's give it away to our businesses, but make them sign a contract where anywhere they use that intellectual property, it promotes the university. The net effect of this, it started in Glasgow University and it's been adopted by about 40 universities around the world now. What they're finding is the net effect is the university actually makes more money because they get research and development contracts from the organizations that are using their IP. Access to capital. From what I've seen in the kingdom here, I think there's a huge opportunity for those that have some money to invest in your youth. Back your children, back your children's friends, encourage them to start businesses and invest in them. Experiential entrepreneur education should be throughout the school curriculum. From as early as you can start, 5 to 10 years old, there's programs that have proven to be successful around the world, all the way through to universities. It should be ingrained nationally. The thing that I find quite ironic about this is that, you know, I feel incredibly humbled as an Australian to be flown over here to talk about entrepreneurship. However, I'm talking to a society that was built on merchants and traders. Entrepreneurship's in your DNA. You guys are one of the countries that founded entrepreneurship under another guise. It's almost like we just need to rediscover it and get it back into the teaching of the children. In taxation and regulation, I think that the most impactful thing that government can do is just make it easy. Just get out of the way. Make it easier, less red, we call it red tape in Australia. Just allow the entrepreneurs to do what they do and make it easy for them and don't constrain them. In culture, the media in this room, the media that have come, profile entrepreneurs, put the stories out there, make aspirations. And in trade and globalization, e-commerce obviously is critical to this. So banks installing more e-commerce platforms and promoting platforms like PayPal are incredibly impactful. So that's it from me. I hope I haven't gone too far over time. Thank you very much. As I mentioned, I'm talking at lunch. Thank you.
Thank you. Gregoire.
Bonjour. First of all, I'd like to thank His Royal Highness and Sheikh Hamel Samel for the chairman of the DCC. As well, I've been having the privilege to be a guest in the kingdom for the last 10 years and to come on a regular basis here in the kingdom. And I've learned a lot. And I'd like to share back with you, first of all, the vision about what's going on about that world which is rapidly emerging through the emergence of the third industrial revolution, to talk to you about some data about why and how we can cope with the youth and the female unemployment challenge, and why are youth and female pivotal in the way to address the challenge of the job creation. I'm waiting for the... Can I get some support?
Technically.
Sorry. if there's somebody. Well, in waiting for the PowerPoint to work, the vision that I want to share with you was inspired by the thinking developed 100 years ago by the economist Joseph Schumpeter, who coined the concept of the creative destruction. And what I want to share with you is the vision about the tree of the whole world economy, which is being radically reshaped at the moment at the speed which is unprecedented. And Chris Hughes mentioned that, but I'd like to share with you some perspectives on that. If you step back, the first industrial revolution took 400 years to happen between 1455 and the middle of the 19th century. And industrial revolution always happen when you have, at the same time, the emergence of new ways of communication. That was the printing with Gutenberg. And then step by step, at the same time, we found out about the coal as being a major source of production of energy. And this is what drove the emergence of the industrial revolution in the textile business. And that's how, step by step, it started to emerge out of Europe. Then and it took 400 years to happen. Then at the beginning, in the middle of the 19th century, we started to see the first mass media emerging, and that was the newspapers, and then we had the radio, and then the movie industry, and then the TV industry, the TV broadcast industry, and at the same time, at the end of the 19th century, we started to see the emergence of the oil as a resource, and we know about that here in the kingdom, as well as electricity with Thomas Edison. And this is what shaped the emergence of the second industrial revolution, where Henry Ford showed that it was about all structuring, terrorizing the industrial organization, which was driven by the industrial offering that was mass production, mass media, and mass consumption. And it fueled the growth of the whole world for the last 150 years, between 1850 and 1995. And in 1995, we started to see the emergence of the internet. In 94, there was 0 internet users all over the world. In 2010, now we have 1 billion. We had 1 billion internet users through fixed line. By 2015, there will be 6 billion internet users through the mobile and the tablets. And by 2020, that there will be 35 billion IoT, Internet of Things, which will be connected. And this is happening in less than 20 years. And at the same time, energy is becoming like information, something that we use, something that we produce, something that we share, and something that we inventory. And the shale gas, which did not exist 5 years ago, is now putting the US in the position to be the #1 worldwide producer in the energy market. And this is driving the emergence of those new sources of energies and of informations, are driving the emergence of a new industrial model, which is driven not by the offering, but which is driven by the demand. And typically, those organizations are much more collaborative, global, flat, and much less vertical and much more horizontal. And entrepreneurs entrepreneurs are playing a key role in the emergence of that. And the difference is that it's happening in 20 years, where the previous industrial revolution happened in 150 years, and the one before in 400 years. And at the same time, we are experiencing 3 major demographic, social, and environmental disruptions. And at the same time, on top of that, we're experiencing 3 major technology disruptions, the one around information technology, the one around life science, and the one around the technology energy revolution. And this is driving the emergence of the whole new model, which is fully driven by demand, and when the whole new value chain is about what I call an emotion-led economy. It's an emotion-led economy where the value of experience and the value of the brand is key. And behind that, you have the industry on demand and the internet industrial, which are reshaping all the services and manufacturing industry. And at the top of that, you have the key, which is how do we qualitatively optimize the natural resources exploitation. And this is what's happening at the moment, and that is happening at the speed of light. We are living through a moment which is a perfect moment of creative disruption, which is happening in less than 20 years. And to give you a perspective, the major markets going forwards will be, if you talk about that in terms of in terms of thousands of billion dollars, you're in a situation where the biggest part of the market for the next 10 years, and it's a $10 trillion market, will be the additional number of middle-class customers all over the world. And the one after immediately is about healthcare and aging, and the one after is about education. And why is that important in the perspective of what we are talking about today? It's key because it shows that youth and female youth and female are a major part of the population, and we are in a situation where now we can foresee that on a regional basis, as well as on a country basis, we are in a situation where the GCC region has the highest level worldwide in terms of youth unemployment. And we can see that social instability is deeply linked with the ability to get the young people to integrate socially and economically in the society. And we are now in a situation, Chris was mentioning that 58% of the population here in the kingdom is below the age of 25 years. In Africa, this goes up to 65% of the population. And it is crystal clear now for both governments and economists that this challenge will not be addressed by governments or existing corporations to provide the jobs for the waves of youth people, youth generations arriving on the market. This can only be addressed by the ability to put the youth and the female. When we talk about an emotion-led economy, you can see how important it is to put the youth people and the female in a position to be the entrepreneurs of their own destinies. They are the agent of change. They are the agent of change. And now, if you look at what can be and what should be the role and the opportunities of entrepreneurs within the 21st century economy, it's about, first, to put them in a position to design and to build the new players of the 21st economy, both in developed and in developing countries. The second point is to put them in the position to create the jobs. I'll share with you two figures. In Europe, 85% of the jobs over the last 20 years have been created by entrepreneurs, 85%. And in that perspective, 57% of the jobs which were created by the 5% fastest growing entrepreneurs and small and medium-sized companies, which means that the challenge is not only about putting the youth people in a position to become entrepreneurs, it's about putting them in a position to grow their business, because 5% of them represent close to 2/3 of the job creation. Then what is key, and that's the third point, is to foster hope for the youth generation. When you have 25–30% of the youth population which is not able to integrate within the economy, then you create a potential situation for challenges and social protests. And that has been experienced not only in the Arabic world, but all over the world, from the Occupy Wall Street to the Indignados in Spain, in France, in the UK as well. And that brings me to my last point, which is putting the youth and the female and the women in the position to be the entrepreneurs of their own destiny is bringing the requested agility to the developed economies to adapt, because some of them are old and need to deeply adapt. And this is true for all the developed economies. And for the developing countries and for the developing economies to build the innovative and economic infrastructure. They are the ones who are going to build them, who are going to build it. And
Gregoire,
if we don't put them...
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off because we're running very short of time.
And this is what I wanted to share with you. This is a shared experience, and I want to thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, we'd like to hear from you.
I'll be very brief.
Thank you.
I'll be very brief since I've already occupied so much of your time already this morning. Try to do it in less than 5 minutes. I'd just like to try to summarize a lot of the things that I think we've heard from several folks up here and that I was trying to share earlier, and then break it down into a really specific idea or recommendation before we go into a brief question and answer period. The first is, on the level of policy, it is incredibly clear that there is much to learn from what's happened in Dubai and in some of the most successful economies across the globe, that you have to make it as easy as possible for entrepreneurship to happen. It should be a prerequisite that legal structures that make it more difficult for new businesses to be created should be simplified. Fees and any kind of financial barriers that make it difficult for people to enter into or create new businesses should be significantly reduced, if not eradicated altogether. The first priority should be lowering those legal and financial barriers so that all of the other challenges that we face, we can work on those together. Second is the role of education, whether it's liberal arts and critical thinking, or very specific entrepreneurial education, as several members of the group up here have talked about. It has to be something that's focused on and thought carefully about. The kind of education that suited the world in Saudi Arabia in the 19th and 20th centuries, and for the United States and Europe as well, is just not going to cut it if we want to encourage entrepreneurship in the 21st. The third is diversity. I mean, it is incredibly clear that there is a growing wave of young people and a growing wave of people who, of all classes, of both genders, who want to participate in the economy, and embracing that is only going to strengthen the effort. To be really specific before opening up for questions, I would highly encourage those of you who lead the Saudi Arabian government, society, and economy to go very small, very specific, and very local to start. Rather than thinking on always thinking on the notion of national policies, those are important, but at the same time as we pursue those goals, we have to cultivate young entrepreneurial leaders today. And it's easier to get 10 or 12 people the resources that they need to succeed and become mentors, become people that others can look up to, than it is to do that at a countrywide scale. That requires giving them connections, giving them mentorship, giving them capital, and most importantly, perhaps giving them a sense of camaraderie. Because entrepreneurship is difficult. It's not something that everyone is up for doing. And it needs to be something that a community is built in if it's going to ever really flourish or succeed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. We had in the agenda at the time for Q&A, and we had assigned 10 to 15 minutes. But we're running very late on our time, so we've got about 5 minutes. I wanted to ask Farid, because I noticed how popular lots of the programs you mentioned. If we wanted to, a quick win, keeping in mind the difference in size of and number of entrepreneurs between the two countries, what could be, from your experience, quick wins for support for young entrepreneurs in Saudi Arabia?
Well,
the things that had the biggest impact maybe in Dubai are?
Frankly, supporting the leadership support is the most important thing in entrepreneurship promotion in the state. As much as the circles try, if there is no support and follow-up from the leadership, the problem is that any project should build a specific level of confidence between it and the purchasers. If this confidence is not available and no one asks them to build such confidence, it is difficult for those people to continue. The sustainability of the project is important, very important. It might be the first time for me to meet with Saudi ladies, the working group under the leadership of our sister Hannah from JCC. This is a distinct work group and I'm proud with this group. I'd like to say if you do not work, they will beat you.
No, shukran. Chris, how do you see social media and its effect for or opportunity for entrepreneurship and for youth entrepreneurship? Do you see that this is a catalyst or a good idea?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is. I mean, I was just, we were talking earlier backstage. I mean, Saudi Arabia has one of the most active social media populations for the number of people who are connected to the internet here, which is wonderful. A couple of things on social media. I mean, social media is a large concept that's constantly evolving and constantly changing. It's been over now 10 years since we started Facebook, and since then we've seen the emergence of all kinds of other networks, global networks, whether it's Twitter or LinkedIn or more recent arrivals like Snapchat or WhatsApp and others. So social media is constantly evolving, and it's still a very fertile ground for lots of innovation and experimentation. I think particularly in a place like this, social media is an important way for people who are just starting to think about new companies, new ideas, new enterprises to create, to share them, get initial feedback from friends, family, and be a way to connect them to potential investors and mentors and advisors. That requires that the entrepreneur uses the networks proactively and reaches out to the people that they respect and admire and even need help from. But as long as social media creates this, it's not a totally level playing field, but certainly makes it a more level playing field than it was before, then I think it'll be a good thing to encourage more innovation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'm sorry we don't have enough time to go into more Q&A. We're going to present 4 questions or 4 statements for the attendants, and we'd like for you to vote if you agree or disagree with this. The first one, entrepreneurship is the answer to the youth employment crisis. Do you agree or disagree?
Come on, 100%.
Okay. Okay. Next question. So 90%
says yes.
agree. Okay. Saudi big business must do more to invest in young entrepreneurs. You agree or disagree?
I guess we don't get to vote.
That should have 100% agreement.
No.
لازم يصير 100%.
So I see 93% agree. Next statement, more must be done to support female entrepreneurs. Do you agree or disagree? %85% of attendants agree. Entrepreneurship must form a formal part of the education curriculum. Agree or disagree?
نعلق عليها.
93% agree. Finally, the last statement, more must be done to instill critical thinking and problem-solving skills in young people in education.
نعلق عليها ولا
ما في وقت.
It's very interesting outcome. أو على الأقل على الأخير. أو على الأقل على الأخير يعني.
Already.
في أسئلة وأجوبة من الجمهور؟ في أسئلة من الجمهور؟ من الجمهور في أسئلة؟ لا.
93% agree. Well, thank you very much for the panelists. شكرا للحضور.
Thank you for the
ونعتذر على
audience. We
الوقت.
apologize for the late.
Thank you.
Nice.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you, Engineer Reda Islam and the panelists in this session.
التحديات وعوامل التمكين.
Now I call on
أدعو الآن السيد عدنان مندورة الأمين العام
General
للغرفة
of
التجارية
JCC
والصناعية
to
بالجدة
honor
لتكريم
the
السادة
participants.
المشاركين. يبدو السادة المشاركين استعجلوا مغادرة المسرح عندهم التزامات أخرى وربما للمواضيع
Had to
الهامة
rush to
والرئيسية
leave
التي طرحت
the
في هذه
stage.
الجلسة
We thank
نشكرهم
them once
مرة
again.
أخرى. وخلال هذا التكريم نذكركم فقط بالأجهزة التي بين يديكم. الجهاز الأول هو باور بوت والذي تستطيعون المشاركة من خلاله في كل جلسة على حدة للتصويت على الاستفتاء الذي يعرض في نهاية كل جلسة. وقد صوت بعضكم على الاستفتاء الذي كان قبل قليل، ونظرا لكثرة عدد الحضور وقلة المصوتين نتمنى منكم الحصول على هذا الجهاز من خارج القاعة للمشاركة في التصويت في نهاية كل جلسة. أيضا هناك جهاز آخر تحدثنا عنه بالأمس وهو جهاز فوكن. هذا الجهاز يتيح لكم المجال للتصويت على عدد من النقاط البارزة المتعلقة بكل جلسة والمشاركة فيها، أيضا حتى على المشاركين في الجلسات ومدى أدائهم. وهذا التصويت سري كما بإمكانكم الاحتفاظ بهذا الجهاز الذي اسمه فوكن الذي قد يمثل كرت تعريف شخصي بكم، وبإمكانكم أيضا الحصول على هذا الجهاز من خارج القاعة والاحتفاظ به. وهناك جدار استفتائي إذا صح التسمية بإمكانكم التصويت مباشرة على الجلسات والمشاركة في الرأي بشأنها. شكرا للأستاذ عدنان مندور. جلستنا المقبلة تحت عنوان تلبية احتياجات الشباب، دور التعليم في تطوير المهارات المطلوبة للعمل، وهي من تنظيم جامعة الأعمال والتكنولوجيا الأهلية بجدة.
Under the supervision of Ghad, the business administration.